Former South African President Nelson Mandela will be buried this weekend. John and Linda Howell of Longmeadow have visited and lived in South Africa 4 times in the past 24 years. They spoke with Jim Madigan about their time in South Africa and the role Nelson Mandela played in his homeland.
We lived there in 1989. I was at the University of Cape Town. And while we were never personally involved in any of the violence, we were aware, because of the television and newspaper reports, of essentially a war between the 2 major black tribes of South Africa. The Xhosa tribe, of which President Mandela is a member, and the Zulu tribe, which was led by then Chief Buthelezi. And they were essentially at war with one another. And when we left on July 4th of that year, we didn't think there was any chance of avoiding a civil war.
Really, really amazing. But this man Mandela had,
yes.
they're really, I mean, to me, he's George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Thomas Jefferson rolled up together.
Well, of course, in 1980, he was still in prison, although they had transferred him from Robben Island to house prison on the mainland, and tried very hard to get him to make a private pact with the apartheid government and split ranks with the ANC. But his philosophy is one of unity, and he would not break ranks with the ANC.
Mm-hmm. More on that in a minute, but Linda Howell, let me ask you, I know one of the things you said was, and you're very observant in your own way, because I know your background is in psychiatric nursing, if I'm not mistaken, is it not? So,
right.
So you're looking at people in your own way. One of the things you said was, and you stressed, I didn't know Mandela, but I did get to know Archbishop Tutu, and kind of amazing, these 2 men and the way they are, the way they were, and what they brought to the fight for freedom in South Africa.
Yes, it really amazes me that 2 men of this caliber and this character came forth in this time in history in this country, in this relatively small country. And I've been thinking about the similarities of them. They both had this wonderful lightheartedness about them, in spite of the huge burdens on them. To be able to have a sense of humor, to be able to be lighthearted, it seems like somewhat of a miracle. They both so much grace and forgiveness, which I believe can only come from God, the kind of forgiveness they had for enemies, that they were not harboring bitterness.
And again, this comes from the 2 men who grew up in a system that from the day they were born really told them, you are not equal,
right.
You are not part of the leadership
Yes.
of this, your homeland.
Yes. To think that they could have that spirit in them. Some of the differences between the 2 men, Bishop Tutu and Nelson Mandela, I would say Bishop Tutu was very emotional. He was able to express his emotions in the Truth and Reconciliation hearings. He would weep with the mother's cry. But Nelson Mandela had a steely discipline after 27 years in prison, and at one point his son died while he was in prison, and he had to keep all his emotions intact. I believe he didn't speak for 12 hours or something like that, but those 27 years produced in him this amazing discipline that then served him well in having his goals for unity in the country come out well. It's said that he thought with his brain rather than his blood. In other words, he didn't let hatred overcome him. He just thought what is good for the country and was able to go with that.
John Howell, let me ask you now, you visited, the 2 of you, South Africa a total of, I think, 4 times. You actually lived there for a period of many months, twice. The first time shortly before Mandela's released from captivity. The next time he's been president for a couple of years. What was that like, and what had he come to mean for the country at that point in the mid-90s when you were back?
Well, after we left the first time, 7 months later, he was released in 1992. And again, between 1992 and the election of 1994, this warfare between the Zulu and the Xhosa intensified. And so here he is, the president, going to be the president of the country, and he's got this huge division. And he doesn't want division, he wants unity. So he personally went to Chief Buthelezi, and he kind of laid it out for him. And he said, you know, in the first 5 years of this new constitution, we have power sharing. So the percentage that you get of the vote is the percentage of the people that you have in parliament. And if you don't participate in the election, you don't get to be in parliament. And that was the turning point. And Buthelezi then participated in the election. They won 10% of the vote. 10% of the parliament became Zulu in Carter Freedom Party, and President Mandela appointed Buthelezi to be in his cabinet. In fact, in February of I think 97, both he and the deputy prime minister, deputy president Thabo Mbeki, went to Switzerland to an economic conference, and he actually appointed Buthelezi to be the acting president in his stead. And he was criticized for that. And he said, well, this man has a great deal of merit, a great deal of experience in leadership. He's the man for the job. That kind of reconciliation by President Mandela was across the board what made him such a great statesman.
We tend to, for many reasons, have elevated him to a level of sainthood. He always downplayed that. He said, I am no angel, I am no saint. Clearly, from the story you're telling, this was, in every good sense of the word, a very careful, thoughtful politician and leader.
And leader. Yeah.
No question about
No
that
question.
in your mind. Briefly, a little less than a minute left, what did he mean to the people of South Africa when you were there, when you knew them, when you saw how they reacted to him?
After the election, there was no civil war. There was no more bloodshed between the tribes of any consequence. There was no war between whites and blacks. All the people of South Africa saw him as their president, and he was a reconciler, and he was a statesman to the very end. They all loved him, white and black.
Could South Africa possibly have moved ahead without Mandela or someone exactly like him?
I think the country would have disintegrated into civil war. There would have been a bloodshed like everybody was expecting, and it was avoided. Praise God.
Well, John Howell, Linda Howell, thank you so much for giving us your perspective, your experience in South Africa, and on the memory of Nelson Mandela.
Thank you for the privilege.